Welcome to Tour de Cons. Today we have a really special episode. At the 2015 C2E2, we had the opportunity to sit down and talk to some really fun special guests. The first interview that we're going to put on here is one that I conducted with Ben Acker and Ben Blacker from Thrilling Adventure Hour. If you haven't checked out this podcast, absolutely check it out. They also do live shows, so if they happen to come through your town, go out and see them. And we talk about the comic books that have been put out based on some of their work. Get those too. They're all great. After that, we've got two more interviews, so stay tuned.
If you don't mind introducing yourself, I'm sitting here at C2E2 with...
This is Ben Acker from the Thrilling Adventure Hour.
And...
Ben Blacker, also from the Thrilling Adventure Hour.
When you guys met, did you say that, okay, one of us gets the BL and the other doesn't?
Yeah. He lost the first two letters in a poker game to me. And that was the first time and last time I ever won anything.
Oh, well, impressive. Yeah, I actually try to only work with people named Outgate. It's very difficult, though. I haven't found one yet. So you guys are the creators of Thrilling Adventure.
Correct.
My first question. Thrilling Adventure. We're gonna focus on that to begin with, and then I want to get to the future. Did you guys have like a deep-seated love of old-time radio, or just radio drama, or was it just, hey, it's just a means to an end, and we like this?
We had a love for what we thought it was, based on the movie Radio Days, and
That's what you based it on?
no, I mean not exclusively. Also, our imaginations and a stray episode of The Shadow I heard in a driveway one time.
Okay.
But in Abbott and Costello routines, there's a smattering of it. But ultimately, it was we love genre stories, and they told genre stories, and it was a way for us to do it economically and with actors we wanted to work with on a regular basis. So the conceit let us tell whatever stories we wanted to tell.
Sure. So did you have the same experience, or was it, were you more the old-timey radio guy, or
No, really neither of us was.
It was just a means to get a story out.
The conceit began from a practical need to work with certain actors, Paul F. Tompkins, Padgett Brewster, Dave Gruber, Allen, guys we knew from the comedy scene in L.A., who we knew were in-demand actors and who didn't have time to memorize a new script every month. So the fact that they could hold the scripts in their hands meant it was a much easier ask for them. And then, as Ben said, we like playing in genre stories, and the sort of old-time feel lent itself to the sort of stories we wanted to do. We tend not to work blue. We tend to kind of write in, I think, a little more accessibly than some other 100-seat theater comedy shows, or other sketch shows that exist, and making it the radio conceit, also like having that throwback aspect, made that part and parcel of the whole package.
And that's another, you bring up that it's different from sketch. Like, there's a lot of sketch in Los Angeles, but we've worked in it and we like sketch, but we wanted to be able to tell full stories. And
sure.
There's short of having a camera or sets or like blocking and stuff, it was a really efficient way to do as big of a story as we could tell.
Yeah, for us, in a way, I think that sketch often is not, especially, as Ben says, there's so much sketch comedy in Los Angeles. For us, the stories we wanted to tell were always about characters, not about concepts. In the same way that The Shadow was about a guy.
Right.
And so the radio conceit allowed us to tell somewhat longer stories and really dig into characters.
Excellent. I fully understand. I actually had aspirations at one point. I wanted to remake Speed Racer way before the movie, even before they relaunched the cartoon, and I was writing it as a radio play. It's a little hard to pull off car racing as a radio play. Let me just tell you that.
We have Amelia Earhart, and we figured out quickly that aerial battles were pretty boring for the radio.
Well, if you get that the guy from Police Academy to, that might be a little bit exciting.
Oh, we are against mouth sound effects.
Good.
But they're too expensive. We can't afford the union rate on those.
So, that brings up a question. Now, I was listening to...
We will field all Michael Winslow related questions.
Well, I see you've got the pin. You're a fan club member, right?
Sure. Well,
President. Yeah. There's my question, though. I was listening to your podcast. I have questions about this.
Thank you. It's a hit podcast. It's available on iTunes as well as the Nerdist Network.
And Stapler, is that one of them? Streamless? What are the other?
Well,
Stitcher.
Nerdist puts it out on.
I don't think that's
No, not on that one.
Carpet Friends. It's all over the internet.
All over the place. Well, I'm actually going to steal it and put it on my network. So
Great.
So when you go, I know you do the live shows. Do you use live music every time? Is it something that you
Most of the time, when we can,
we
use the live music, which is at Largo.
The live show has a small band, and they are there at every single show. Occasionally, Andy Paley, who's the band leader, needs to doctor the music afterwards, kind of beef it up a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, I that was something that to me when I was listening, or every time I've listened, I've gone, I just love that. I love that you have the live music in there. And for sound effects, so do you have Foley at all that you're using? I mean, it's subtle.
We have a gentleman named Cayenne Chris Conroy who builds the sound effects for us. Okay. Every month we send him the script, and he sends drafts of the sound effects, and we zero in on what they should be together. They're written in the script. He parses the script, and then he builds them and sends them. And I'm pushing buttons, or Mike Furman is pushing buttons in the booth
as it goes along.
So it's cheap Foley, in that it's not shoes on a board or lettuce or a piece of meat getting slapped.
We did. We should say, people ask about this a lot. And we did try a Foley artist a couple times back in the very early days of the show. And because of the sort of stories we're telling and the way we're telling them, the audience really has to pay attention.
Right.
It's not a show you can zone out during. And having a Foley artist on stage stole focus, both from the actors but also from your concentrating on the story. So it became more of an intrusion.
Right.
And the novelty is fun. We've tried it a couple of times since, just, for fun. But the show works better when it's recorded sound effects, which are really hard to do. Not just to create them, Cayenne does an amazing job, but to play that, you need
to be effectively
timing.
Hitting it right at the right time.
And we've tried, a lot of different people have tried it, and Ben, for a long time, was the only one who could hit the sound effects correctly, until we found Mike Furman to help out, who's a musician as well as a comedian and actor.
Yeah,
so he has perfect timing.
The other thing is, we used to have a sound effects gentleman named Joel Spence who created the sound effects and was terrific and has moved on to his own comedy shows because he is a comedy gentleman.
Okay.
But
a comedy gentleman, I like that.
He absolutely
we only
is.
work with gentlemen of comedy.
Well, then I'm not working with you, I'm sure.
But he was the one that at first, when he was our first Foley man, and at first he was trying, he would scrape a balloon for characters sitting in a bench, and it was funny, but it, as Blacker said, stole focus. But then he found this great balance, and I just want this on the record that the demeanor of Joel Spence just pushing buttons on a computer complemented the visual and was just subtle and added to the whole thing, except for it felt like with a bunch of actors on stage and one guy with a Mac computer open, that it was sponsored by Mac, and we would have been open to that, but we weren't sponsored by Mac.
Yeah, right.
So A, they can pay us some back pay,
right,
and B, that we eliminated it from the on-stage element and do it from the booth, where it actually works better plugged into the soundboard and all.
So this has grown. I mean, you've been doing it for 10 years now. Do you sell out all the time? Has it just been consistent? Did it grow from 10 people? Can you tell I do live shows? We have 10 people sometimes. Did it start with 10 and just grow from there?
It started with... Thank you, 5. It started with... It wasn't 10 people. It was friends. It started with a nice house.
We knew everyone in the audience.
But we knew everyone in the audience.
Yeah.
And it grew to be strangers, which is, the ideal arc.
Yes.
And for the past 2 years at Largo at the Coronet, which is our home in LA, we moved there after 5 years. It's a 270-seat theater.
Oh, wow.
We've sold that out every month. And
Wonderful.
We sell out. We announced a show at the Bell House in Brooklyn, which is sort of our home away from home. And we sold that out in 3 hours, which is a similar size venue. So it's exciting. We're glad people want to see the live show, especially as it becomes more scarce.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. 3 hours is impressive.
It is. I was shocked.
So going back to old-timey radio that you now have experienced, what shows would you say draw you?
From actual old-time radio?
Yeah, from actual old-time radio. Is there anything that you actually listen
That
to?
one episode of The Shadow was great.
That was it, okay.
No, I mean, I'm sure there's more.
But that
I like
was
Jack,
kind of the one.
I like Jack Benny when I see him.
That's actually
on radio.
mine, too. I mean, I listen to a lot of it, but that's the one that I go, he had it right. The sound, the timing.
Are the Bing and Bob road movies old radio? Because I love those.
I'm going to rule yes on that.
All right. You'll allow it?
I mean, I understand that they're movies, but I'm going to say that they're old-time
It
radio.
feels like radio.
Well, if you watch it with the sound off, or with the picture off, with the sound off.
With the sound off.
That's
You've got it.
Yeah, right. Daredevil enjoys it as old-time radio.
Sure.
How's that? See, very topical.
He just puts his hand on the screen.
Right.
Did Daredevil die? Is that why that's not
Spoilers. So, okay, we've only got
Just very sick.
Oh, sorry, I had to find out this way.
way to bum out the whole con, man.
There are people cosplaying as Daredevil. Anybody coughing?
In tribute, right?
In the first act.
Right. Season 2 is going to be rough. Not a lot of action. So I have a question. You guys have your stories now are being made into comic books.
By us.
We are.
It's you guys are. I thought that you were picked up by.
No, the worlds aren't being made into comics. We are writing new stories for them.
Oh, exciting!
And
okay.
these stories complement and supplement the podcast, so you can listen to the podcast and read the comic and learn more about your favorite characters or histories and
if you're unfamiliar with the podcast, the comics are actually a great jumping on point because we set them a little bit before the podcast stories began. And they are Sparks Nevada, Marshall on Mars, and Beyond Belief, which are both available from Image now.
Now, yes. In fact, Beyond Belief, did that just come out?
It just streeted this week.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, so I'm excited. I'm hoping to find one out there in the.
We have a bunch in the booth.
Town floor. Okay, I'll come by for sure.
So good. It should be mentioned that Jay Bone, who is the artist for Sparks, and Phil Hester, who is the artist for Beyond Belief, are. Can you swear on this podcast?
Sure.
Amazing. They're both so great. And they're both so suited for, or they're each so suited for the story that they're drawing. We are so excited to be working with those guys.
And in fact,
it's great.
I gotta say, the whole team on each book is killer, from the colors to the letters.
Yeah.
Even to our editor, Nate Cosby, who we've been working with since we wrote a Flash Gordon arc this past year, and met Nate during that, and he really helped us put this whole thing together. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, I encourage everybody to get your comic. I can't wait to get out there and get the Beyond Belief. Thank you guys so much. I truly appreciate it, and I hope everybody finds your stuff, and I just enjoy following what happens, and hopefully in the future we'll see each other again.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Our next interview is actually a little different than the other two. Molly, our daughter, got to interview Timothy Omundson, the actor from Gallivant, and a lot of you know him as Lassie from Psych. It's not really Molly interviewing Timothy. It turned into Timothy interviewing Molly. It's really a lot of fun. Here you go.
First of all, you're 8 years old. Hello.
Just turned 8.
And your name is Molly.
Yes.
You just turned 8. Okay, Molly, so I'm going to pull you closer because I really can't hear you with a small voice.
Okay.
So what would you like to know?
What was your favorite scene doing in Gallivant?
My favorite scene in Gallivant, that is so incredibly hard to choose one scene because it was probably the favorite job I've ever had in my life, and I kind of love them all. I know that's a cop-out answer, but I really... Let me think one of the best... Well, working with Ricky Gervais was a big highlight in my life. Do you know who he was? He was the wizard.
He was funny at it.
He's a rather funny. He's one of my favorite funny people. So that was really thrilling to get, like how you are right now, like freaking out. That's how although you're not freaking out. You're playing it much cooler than I did. When I met him, I was totally freaking out.
Okay. What was your favorite song?
My favorite song, it started out being the one from the pilot with the She'll Be Mine, the one I sang.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Okay, that was but then after I did the lullaby in the last episode, then that became my favorite song.
Oh yeah, that was a really good song too.
But in terms of like fun. Like the lullaby was really sweet, but the She'll Be Mine was crazy fun.
I can sing it.
You can? Let me hear it.
I want to shoot him with the crossbow. I want to stab him in the eye. I want to liberate his head from his neck and pump the bloody wreck sky high.
Very good.
I want to hurl him out a window. Shove explosives where the sun don't shine. I want to
You want to score him with swords
and slowly twist him all around his reproductive system. When that be divine, then she'll be mine. That's all I know.
That's most of the song. So, very good.
Thank you.
Do you do singing in musicals and stuff like that?
No.
Well, you should. Do you ever want to do that, or does it freak you
Maybe.
out? Well, that sounds fun. What do you do? What's your hobby? What's your fun?
Well, I draw.
Really, my oldest daughter draws. That's what she's into as well. Okay, anything else? What else?
I don't really have anything.
No? Nothing? All right, and you have a podcast? Is this correct?
Yeah,
Do you have a blog?
Gallivant one. Maybe not the worst podcast ever.
That's the name of your podcast?
Yes.
My Gallivant one.
I don't know why I haven't heard this podcast before because it sounds like it's awesome.
It's very funny.
What is your favorite scene? Or do you have a favorite episode out of the 8?
I like the first one.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Really
The
such
first and second both together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like those too.
Do you have any questions about any of the other actors? Because they're not here, so I can totally tell you what.
Not really.
No? Okay. Yeah, why would you? Because really, I'm
It's
here.
all about
Right.
you.
It's all about you.
And King Richard's sitting right here. Let's see.
Molly, were you going to tell him about Comedy Gold? You said you were going to show him what he was missing in Comedy Gold.
Oh, you were missing this.
Mm,
You should have punched it. Boom.
that's very good. You know, okay, so
I learned it in vaudeville.
it was very vaudeville.
She
You're
took it. She
absolutely-
did a vaudeville class. Yeah.
You took a vaudeville class?
Yeah.
It was the only
One in
vaudeville class in the country, and it happened to be right by us.
I've never even.
It's a school. It was a
Yeah,
school.
it
So
was
she
school.
did every week. She had a class
Yeah.
and how to do vaudeville. So she learned how to milk the audience and
I forgot milking the audience.
That's
Oh, you gotta
when
milk
you
the
back
audience.
up and then you do it and then.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So because I don't dance, I'm not a very good dancer. I can sing a little bit. I
You
mean,
were good on the show.
well, thank you. It's amazing what you can do when you practice something, and they have really good people teaching you. But I'm mainly an actor who started singing, and then every now and then I would have to dance. So I always get really scared because I can't follow choreography. But that one, they took it easy on me, and they made it sort of simple moves. But we shot that. That took a whole day to shoot because one minute we have to shoot like this set, then we got to shoot in that set, because remember we come down the stairs and we're in the throne room and then we're outside, and it was very complicated.
That was, I think, my favorite was the one through the prison when.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that
yeah.
was
My
hysterical.
God, you have the best lines. We cried. We laughed so
Yeah.
hard.
Secret Mission.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh
That
my
was really
gosh.
Oh,
that
that
was
was
so
awesome.
funny. Or when you were trying to be cool.
Oh, that was hysterical.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I
It
mean,
was such
anything with you, we just go crazy.
Yeah, you're my
Yeah.
favorite character on the show.
Well, thank you very much. Well, it's very nice to meet you, Molly. Thank you for coming all the way out here to meet me and talk to me. It's been a pleasure. Will you take a photograph with me?
Okay,
Oh my
I
god.
would love it.
Okay.
She was going to ask you. Well, she said she knew, but is there any movement on Gallivant?
We will find out May 12th.
May 12th.
So a couple
we gotta
weeks.
put the good vibes out.
We're
Yeah, I
hoping.
think, you never know in this business. It
Yeah.
seems very positive, but anything can happen.
I saw something that said Gallivant Season 2 on it when I was looking up. I was about to dress up as somebody from Gallivant, but we only had one day.
Who are we going to dress up as?
I was going to dress up as Elizabeth. Elizabeth? I forgot her name.
Madalena?
No,
No, the other one.
Oh, Queen,
No.
The one with the million
Isabella.
names.
Isabella.
Yeah,
Queen
Isabella.
Isabella.
Yeah.
She was going down the list of all of her names, but
Yeah,
thank you so much.
thank you.
Really, what a
This is-
pleasure to meet you.
Next up, we have Jeremy Scott and Chris Atkinson. They are the guys that do the Cinema Sins that you find on YouTube. They're those videos where it says everything wrong with Spider-Man 2. They're hilarious, awesome YouTubers. But the reason that we actually interviewed them was not that. Jeremy Scott just wrote a book called Abel's. and it's really cool. That's what the interview was supposed to be about. As you know from listening to our shows, it went way off track. We go into cinema sins, we go into search engine optimization, and then we talk about movies. So there you go. Please enjoy Jeremy Scott and Chris Atkinson from Cinema Sins. Why don't you introduce yourselves?
All right, I'm Jeremy Scott.
I'm Chris Atkinson.
So you guys are with Cinema Sins. Yes. And I want to talk to you about that, and I want to talk to you about your book.
Okay.
And just kind of all of it. So, first of all, after this podcast, I do not want to see everything that's wrong with this podcast show.
Without the visual content, like the moving images, it's harder for us to do that on audio.
Good, excellent. So I need to remember
absolutely.
that. So, okay, let's talk about that for a second. How long have you guys been doing that?
December 2012.
Yeah.
Wow. Because I seem to see your stuff constantly.
It's good to hear.
Yeah, that is good to hear.
So let's talk about that for a minute before we start talking about the book. What made that whole thing start up?
We had done several different kinds of channels trying to, work on movies and stuff like that. We tried to do a fake movie review thing that didn't work out very well because the humor didn't translate, or we just weren't funny. Who knows? And we tried to do some other things with YouTube channels, and they had their own little successes and everything. But it wasn't until this that we hit the major success and everything like that. So. That's sort of how that all started. Was we hit pretty big, and then we kept doing it each week, and it kept building and snowballing, and we knew we could stick with that.
Yeah,
Chris and I used to write, both of us, for a website called realseo.com that talks about online video marketing and tips and news and that kind of thing. And I think both of us just reported on that kind of thing so long that we got the bug ourselves to create a channel, and we just failed a few times before we succeeded.
Yeah, and that was the thing about writing for Real SEO, is that you would go and try to look for articles to, write about YouTube success and things like that.
Right.
And YouTube put their own creator handbook out and everything, and I used to write on that a whole bunch, and just the stuff that was inside of that was a lot of stuff that we ended up using for this. So that was invaluable, really.
So, well, there's a big tip. Anyone starting a YouTube channel.
Absolutely. I mean,
everybody tends to ignore those kinds of things.
Yeah.
They think it's like common sense. And so, I know to leave a good description. I don't need to read this YouTube manual. But, I mean, it really is, it's all in there.
Yeah, it really is. And a lot of people just kind of they think that the good content is all that they need. It's a big part of what you need. But, they're not willing to do the other things that make them big,
So do you guys do that yourselves? I mean, obviously you've got a background in it, or do you have other people working for you, or how does that work?
Both. I mean, we have people that work for us that have access to the channel that will do some things for us, sometimes like set up annotations or what have you. But I'm still going in every time we launch a video on the main channel, and I'm the one doing it, putting in the description and the annotations and all that stuff.
Well, before we even had people working for us, what you would do was send it out to a whole bunch of different publications and websites and things like that. We'd send videos, everything wrong with Amazing Spider-Man, which was the first one, went out, and then we got 3 bites. How many was it? 3 bites on it, maybe.
Yeah.
And all of those were pretty big.
Forbes was one of them.
Oh,
yeah.
So we just
so you started small.
We just said, well, okay, we'll do another one next week, and maybe you can do an interview with us, and we'll let you kind of exclusively break the video.
Yeah.
And so we did that the next week, and then we went to one of the other places, and we just bounced that for about 5 or 6 weeks until we had enough momentum on our own that we didn't need to prearrange like interviews or what have you. The coverage just kind of started happening.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a background in like film? I mean, I know you said you were looking at kind of doing that, but did you have aspirations for making films, or was it more about ripping it apart?
I think when I was younger, I was thinking about maybe possibly getting into film or whatever. But I got into movie theaters.
Okay.
That was my thing. When I was 16, my first job was a movie theater. And then it ended up being my only job for the most part of 20 years after that.
Wow.
And I know Jeremy's the same way. He was in movie theaters a lot too.
I worked about 10 or 12 years. We actually met each other managing at a movie theater.
Okay.
And then formed our friendship watching movies together, and making fun of them like Mystery Science Theater. And
Right.
And so the seeds for what we're doing were planted probably 15 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
So were they like revival theaters, or were you more into like? I was working for Crown, like that.
I worked for Regal. I just worked at
Everybody?
a regular Cineplex.
I worked at Carmike and then Regal. I worked for both companies for a really long time in that 20 years. But yeah, they were just your everyday multiplexes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when you guys get your clips and everything, I mean, obviously the studios are playing ball with you at this point, or
I don't know what game we're playing.
because how do you get that? How are you able to do that?
We have had one studio that likes us for sure, and we've actually talked to them. But we still, I mean, that doesn't mean like they're just completely on board with everything we do.
Well, you use a lot of clips, obviously.
We
so.
do it in a way that's fair use because of all the overlay we put on top and the audio we add and the way we use the clips. They're all very short and individual, and then we're sort of a blend of parody and criticism and critique. And so we've consulted with lawyers, and we're very comfortable knowing we're fair use and that what we do is legal. And so the only issue is, does a studio want to put a claim on a video, or does the Content ID automatic system catch something?
Sure.
And then we have to work that out through the YouTube system by saying, well, actually, here we're fair use, and so you need to not be mad at us. I mean, who knows if they really are mad at us?
Yeah, but
numbers
whatever their
driven.
algorithm is, and they go after you, just took it off.
And a lot of these studios have third-party companies that are just looking out for them. So, like, even the studio, like I was saying, even the studio that we've actually met with some people there and everything, we've had stuff flagged by them.
Yeah, it's almost all third-party.
So,
but it's not. It hasn't been a huge impediment for us. We don't have that many issues with claims, and we think it's because A, we're fair use, and B, they're starting to realize how much we're helping their product.
Right, exactly.
Drive conversation and discussion and purchases and fandom and what would have passion. So I think they get it, or slowly are getting it.
I want to talk about Abel's.
Okay.
So you wrote this book.
I did.
And how you hit number one, like right when it came out.
It was trending number one for 24 hours or so, maybe longer.
Okay.
That's the power of 4 million.
Yeah,
viewers,
right. You say, I'm doing this, and
so
you're going to get some interest.
What I'm doing is sort of cheating, right? I'm not trying to get a publisher to say, oh, your book's so good, we're going to slap our label on it and send it out to the bookstores. I'm trying to take this audience we've built here that likes us and say, okay, this is this thing I've created. Let's break outside the system. And so far it's going pretty well. But yeah, it did hit number one on Amazon for a day or so.
It obviously has some legs. Is there any interest to do anything else with it? Maybe a comic book, film, anything? I mean, have you had anybody pass it?
I'm in this place where I don't dare ask the universe for anything more because I've been pretty fortunate.
Okay.
But if I continue to be lucky, I have more stories with these characters I'd like to tell. I would love to see it adapted for television or film.
So are you thinking of a sequel to the book?
Oh, yeah. If everything goes to plan, there'll be four books in the series.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But I'm not going to assume that's going to work, right? Let's see how this is received and reviewed, and if it sells a bunch, then I'll go right into number 2.
So, Jeremy, I got a question, because your characters in it they have disabilities, I'll say. I don't know if you go, oh no, politically correct, it's blunt. Okay.
I'm not a big politically correct person.
Good, excellent. I am going to destroy this thing. So, do you have people in your life that have disabilities? Is that what inspired it, or was it just you looked at it? What was it?
If I'm honest, it was a creative premise that I liked. I liked the idea of a superhero whose abilities were limited, and that's sort of where it began for me. And then when I stumbled into writing from the first person from the blind character, I realized I'm probably not the first person to ever do that, but that's pretty unique to have a book written from the blind person. So for me, it was about what interests me as a writer, and then as I got going, it became a lot more than that, obviously.
Sure.
But the answer to that question is no. I suppose I've just been inspired by disabled people I've met in life, but nobody in my direct life that was an inspiration.
It's kind of like, you watch the Farrelly Brothers movies.
Yeah.
They have a lot of people with disabilities, and they have to have it in their family. There's no way. But then again, maybe they just say this is an interesting group of folks, and
maybe they do. That's
and
an
I
interesting
understand
point.
that,
Yeah. I was just driven by what would be challenging and fun and interesting to write.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like it. I think it's really cool, and it is unique.
Well, thank you.
It's not something I've run into before.
And you will have another interview to do with Chris here next time, because he's got his own book.
Oh,
that will be coming out
Chris.
later.
What are you doing?
Well, I mean, to describe it right now is kind of hard.
I
but,
want to hear every detail. I want you to spoil it. And
I will say that I'm heavily influenced by Douglas Adams and
who isn't at this table?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, if you don't know who Douglas Adams is at this point, but
Give us your geek card credit.
that's
geek
right.
cred card.
When I was 10 or 11, I read the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, and I'm also heavily influenced by the Zucker brothers and Jim Abrams and all those guys. And so my book is very much joke a minute, adventure story, pirates, all that type of thing.
Fun.
So that's something that I wrote a long time ago, and I'm looking to edit it and put it into shape, and then hopefully we can have the same type of thing that the Ables is doing right now.
Fun bit of trivia: we wrote these two books at the same time. Actually, no, we didn't. I wrote a different book at the same time. Chris and I were writing partners in the sense that you keep me honest because you keep asking me to give you a chapter, and so we've done it twice. And the book that I'm releasing was my second, and the book that he's releasing was his first.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
yeah, it's really cool. It's
But
really
it's cool
to see it.
and you guys met. How old were you when you met?
Oh golly!
Were you like
It
high
was
school? or-
99, so I was 22.
Yeah, I was 24.
All right.
So we've known each other, golly, almost half our lives. now.
Yeah, it's a long
And I was
time.
like 30 at that age. That sucks. Wow. Yeah. So okay. Then I got the big question. You mentioned some of the faves. What's your favorite Farrelly Brothers?
Okay. I like Kingpin the best.
Yes, me
Yeah.
too. My wife always says that's such a guy movie. She thinks they're funny. She's like, I don't see why you think it's so funny. I'm like, it's an Amish bowling movie. You've already hit 5 stars. Now let's see how we take away from those 5.
And
Woody Harrelson one hand. Not going away there.
yeah, exactly. That movie, it came out before There's Something About Mary, which was their big, huge. Well, Dumb and Dumber was actually their big, huge breakout. But then Kingpin came out, and everybody was, I don't know, it did nothing in the theaters.
Yeah, and it's
It's so funny. It's definitely my favorite. There's Something About Mary came out, and then everybody
then everyone was on board
back
with.
on the Farrellys again. But they've really ever since me, myself, and Irene was their sort of turning point. But ever since then, like you might get somebody who's like a big Shallow Hal fan, or you know, or
I don't think I've
not.
ever met a stuck on you fan.
no stuck on
Wait
you
a minute.
fan.
I liked Stuck on You.
Yeah,
I'm not
see,
saying I'm a fan. I liked it though.
So, but
You know what I actually like in that one? It's funny because it's not the Farrelly Brothers like the comedy part. It's like when he's sitting on the bench next to the statue and he's missing his conjoined twin. That's what I remember, and I'm just like, that was fantastic.
yeah.
That is a funny image.
But it is, but it's no Bill Murray with the hair.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Nothing ever will be either. And then also right after that, after Kingpin, you had Big Lebowski that came out
Right.
a couple of years later.
Right.
Even that didn't do anything in theaters.
Right,
But,
and
you know,
now-
now both of those movies have their own huge cult following. So
Yeah, they just had to roll with it.
yeah, definitely.
Terrible, Joe. Terrible. You're like, I can't wait to review
It's
this
like, wait a minute.
podcast now. Wait a minute. What about Zucker Brothers?
Oh God, I mean,
They're another one that when they hit the skids, it's rough. But
yeah, and
when
I
they're
think
good, it's-
a lot of that had to do with what was perceived as what should be a parody movie or what should be a slapstick comedy or whatever.
Yeah.
And
when
Airplane.
the Wayans got in there and destroyed it all.
Yeah, well, and the Friedberg Seltzer team, they both wrote Scary Movie. They wrote that, and then Keenan Ivory Wayans directed that, and that became the standard because that was a huge hit. Scary Movie
right. And
was
then everything was that same thing.
yeah, and after that, they watered down what the Zucker brothers had done, where it was more about people getting hit over the head and really, really obvious references, and and that's all they are. Is
Most of them are just a poster now.
Yeah,
that's
and-
really all it is, and then fart jokes.
And what I hated about the Friedberg Seltzer movies was that they would they do these they do these like really contemporary things in there, like Ashton Kutcher punked and stuff like that, and you're like, this is going to be a dead joke.
This isn't funny
6
tomorrow.
months. Yeah,
exactly.
So even if it's not funny, but even if it were funny, you're not going to. I mean, you can't look back at those movies as classics. You can still look at Airplane, 1980. You can still look at that back then and laugh. It's like it was back then.
Blowing up the autopilot is
Yeah.
timeless.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That doesn't go away. So Jeremy, what was the first book? You said this is your second book.
I wrote a book about time travel that it's just bad, and I'm probably never
is?
going back to it. But
Okay. You don't want to tell us what it is?
I was just
We could go back in time and
I
erase
think I
it.
shared it on Twitter. It was about a guy who invents time travel, but then through the adventures that follow after that, the only way he can save his girlfriend is to go back and stop himself from inventing time travel. And it's just, time travel is just messy.
Yeah, it is. Can I just say that's called a paradox you're entering there?
No, I know. I'm fully aware. I wrote the whole
Unless
thing.
you're Austin Powers and you say, just go for the ride and don't be smart, it's not going to work.
Exactly. So, I mean, I don't think I'll ever go back to it, but I think it was very important to me to get a novel done.
Yes.
And know that I could, and know what that process looked like, so that when the Abel story was ready to be told, I sort of had a framework.
So are you working on another novel right now?
Only in outline form.
Just an outline.
I've got an outline for the next Abel's book, if I'm so lucky.
Okay. And yours is almost done.
It's essentially done. All I have to do is clean up some things, because I wrote that in just, in a sort of haphazard fashion, where it's just things that came off the top of my head and everything, and you look at the structure of the book and it's kind of like, okay, I need to explain some things here and there. I can't go at a breakneck pace with all these jokes being thrown at once and expect people to know what's going on. So
here's a tip: get rid of that Ashton Kutcher joke, because it's really not timely anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Justin Bieber's not going to last either. So.
Damn, God.
Bieber fever might.
Nobody that I made fun of is still relevant in that
I
book
was
anymore.
even worried with the Abels about calling his mobile device a phone.
Really?
Because I didn't want to date the story. Because I don't know that we're going to call him. Even now, we're starting to call them things other than phones.
Yeah,
mobile device.
Yeah, and so that's what I used in the book. But I even stopped at that moment, and I thought, I don't want to use a term that'll be outdated in 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one I wrestle with all the time is I still say, "Oh, did you pick up that album?"
Oh yeah.
Oh, son of a! And now vinyl's coming back, so it's like, okay, I got to say vinyl. I have to say CD. It's brutal.
Yeah. It's not easy if you're a music fan.
Sucks getting
at least
old.
the lingo wise.
Yeah. Plus the music, because I am a big music fan, and I listen to a lot of old jazz and stuff. Okay, you can get away with that, but if you go and you pop on an 80s album, you feel like an old man now. And I'm like, yeah, but this was a cool Replacements album. But you feel like an old man. What happened?
We got old.
Yeah,
You got old. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I said
we all did.
We all
I
got
took
old.
it personally.
The royal we, man.
So, okay, one of the interviews I did today was Thrilling Adventure Hour. I don't know if you know that show. But it's like old-time radio and that. Do you have any aspirations of doing anything like that, like radio drama? Because you guys, even though you're working in a visual medium, I've watched what you do. It's definitely auditory. I mean, it needs the visual with it, but you think in an auditory way.
We do. I come from a radio background in college, and so we're actually talking about some podcast stuff we're going to do ourselves. We'd like to start our own podcast where we can be a little more real with our opinions and not quite so a-hole persona and whatnot. I personally would love to do an old-time radio show. I think that would be fun as hell.
Yeah.
But, I don't have any plans to or anything.
Cool. Well, I don't want to take your time. I know you guys want to do your thing. It was just really awesome to get to talk
I'm
to
so
you
glad
guys.
that you were interested in talking to us. I
Yeah,
appreciate
man.
it.
Totally. I would love to talk to you more, but I know you're here for the con. So
Well, it was good to meet you.
it was awesome meeting you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Well, that's it. Thank you so much for checking out Tour de Cons. As we do more cons this summer, we'll get more of these little interview clips together. We'll be posting panels on this feed. We'll also do some breakdowns of the cons like we've done in the past. C2E2, thank you so much. This was fantastic. Chris, Jeremy, Ben, and Timothy, all of you, just excellent. So much fun to talk to. We hope to see you out there again. Check out Thrilling Adventure Hour. Check out Cinema Sins. Go get Abel's. And make sure you hashtag Renew Gallivant and let's see King Richard come back. Thanks a lot, everybody.